Hey, it's Jenny LSQ, and this is episode 6 of the LSQ podcast, featuring an interview with the awesomely talented Angel Olsen. If, like a lot of folks, you fell in love with Angel's music via her 2016 album My Woman, her third studio LP and home to songs like Shut Up, Kiss Me, I hope you'll stick with me for a conversation where Angel and I talk about not just where she's headed next, but where she came from, musically speaking. And Angel is playing some shows coming up. She's at the Coachella Festival in April and has some headlining dates in the area in the week in between, so if that's geographically relevant to you, definitely try and get out to see her live. It really is an amazing thing to hear her voice in the room with you. And so thanks to Angel for sitting for this conversation. Also, later on in this episode, you'll hear an excerpt from a 2003 interview I did with Avril Lavigne when Rolling Stone sent me to Tokyo to do a cover story on Avril right when she was having early hits like Complicated and Skater Boy. And you'll hear Avril talk a bit about her songwriting process in that clip. If you want to reach me with feedback or questions, I'm on Twitter at JennyLSQ. Let's get into it. Hi, Angel Olsen.
Hi.
Welcome to my podcast.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for having me over to your temporary LA space.
Yeah.
Taking off the cardigan, man. It's going to get rough. No, just kidding.
Take off the cardigan. It's okay. I sprayed enough stuff in the room. That's fine.
So glad to have a chance to talk to you at length, and I feel like the only interview type things we've done have been kind of, weird festival, in passing type things. And what I like to do is to be able to really dig into how a person got into music in the first place. I mean, even before they knew they wanted to play it, and tease out some of the threads of that. So that's, where we'll start.
Okay.
What do you remember about the first music you ever loved?
Oh, I mean, I loved music when I was a little kid, and I was definitely into watching movies and redoing the scenes of movies as a kid. And then, I don't know. I just grew up listening to a lot of different things. My parents are 76 and 85, so there's a huge age gap. So
right,
whatever they were listening to, I sort of dove into. They listened to a lot of old 50s songs, so that was sort of what I would listen to growing up. And then I got into piano and.
Right, and so would they play records often around the house?
Not really. They weren't very musical. I think a lot of my interest in playing music and digging up, they would listen to it occasionally, but they weren't really artistic or musical people. But I think what I did was I just sort of romanticized what they might have been like at my age, mm-hmm. and went through family photographs and stuff, and would find old photos of them with their kids in the 60s and 70s, and just sort of try to imagine what they'd be listening to, and kind of discovered music that way,
right,
through nostalgia.
And would you ask them much about that kind of thing?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
And did you, because they were initially your foster parents, who
right.
were your parents, and so you mentioned their kids. Were their children from back when they were younger a part of your life growing up?
Some of them were, but they were more like uncles and aunts. They had kids my age, so they would sort of take me on family trips and stuff when my parents couldn't.
Right.
So I had different examples of parents, or role models, I guess. But they were out of the house. My brother Chris, who was also adopted, was in the house, so we could share that.
Right.
Being the aliens of the family, we could share that together. And he listened to a lot of hip hop and R&B and stuff, so there was a little bit of that. At some point, I was really into Mariah Carey and Boyz II Men, and I went through those phases. But it wasn't until I was 16 or 17. I like to tell the story because it's freshman year, private school, cheerleader for a very small, might as well be homeschool size classrooms, because it was 25 people to a class.
Oh, wow.
So I was a cheerleader for a basketball team at this very small private school, non-denominational private school. And then that year I think I got pneumonia, and I kind of lost a lot of weight, and they wanted to throw me up in the air, and I was like, fuck that, I can't do that. And I'm not going up there, you know?
Like, I'll throw up in the air.
Yeah, so I quit, and I joined, like, a ska punk band called Good Fight, and I would go to these, like, shows all the time. There was this place called the Creepy Crawl, which I don't think exists in St. Louis anymore, but it was pretty gross. Like, it was a pretty gross place to go. But, yeah. So I got connected with all these kids, and then there was this music scene website called STL Punk, which is like it was like a functioning, or a St. Louis version of Facebook before Facebook had exploded.
Okay.
And you could find out where bands were playing, if they were playing house shows, where the locations were, and everybody had a profile, so you could see like who was in what band. And so it was like this early network, and we would find shows, me and my friends from school. So within a year, I was like ex cheerleader. Now I like wanted to dye my hair and like, you know, go through all this stuff. And I was singing in this band trying to be like, you know, kind of like Gwen Stefani meets, I don't know, Sublime or something with like punk.
And had you started playing an instrument yet at that point?
No, I was playing piano, like going to lessons. I think I probably quit around then. And then I started playing guitar, and that's when I discovered independent music, and listened to a lot of Stereolab and Broadcast and Mount Erie and Yola Tango, and then that's when things sort of opened up, and I realized there was old music, which I always loved, but there was this other kind of music out there that was lyric driven and really strange, and I wanted to explore that. So playing guitar, writing my first songs probably around 16 or 17.
Right.
And I eventually, I don't know, I think I was just like going in a different direction than the band. And I remember playing a show at the High Watt, or it was someplace, the High Dive or Hi-Fi in St. Louis. And at the end of the show, I remember like going out back and we're loading. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. It was like super dramatic for like 17-year-old. Like, I just can't do this anymore. I've been writing different music, you know.
Did you manage to record any stuff with that first band?
I mean, I have a CD somewhere, but it's probably all scratched up. I don't know. I don't remember what the songs were about. Like,
yeah, totally.
I just remember it was really fun because all I had to do was write the songs, and I like would dance around on stage and jump around. Very different time in my writing life. But
what was the primary vehicle for digging into, you know, as you say, Broadcast and Stereolab and all that sort of stuff? Once that door got kind of open for you, was it just the internet, or, you know?
It was like a mix of the internet, but also like going to these shows, I would meet older kids and older people, and they would introduce me to, they'd make mixtapes for me, or mix CDs or whatever, you know, and so I would discover stuff. And I didn't really, like, I remember downloading music and stuff, but it was such a weird, it wasn't like this known thing to just use the internet to find music at the time. Like, MySpace was existing at some point.
It's like, it is funny even in how long the internet era has been at this point, how there was still a huge portion of it where it didn't really feel like you could just search for anything, and even if you could have, you didn't really know how, or it's like, you know,
you just didn't think to.
Yeah.
It wasn't a resource like that yet. I consider myself like on the edge of millennials because I grew up where you had to keep your plans, you know. My parents didn't give me a cell phone until way later, so like they'd give me a pager and drop me off at the Creepy Crawl. I mean, this place, like if you drove your car there, your car was broken into, all your stuff was stolen almost every night. So you know, we would go to these places or go to the Lamp Arts Center to see like a noise show, and I'd just try so hard to understand noise rock, and I'd just be like, one day it'll click, and all of this will mean so much more than it does right now, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
That never clicked for me. So, but yeah, it was a very big scene in St. Louis, like noise and just like these weird, I just liked being around the people and being like, these kids are like my age. Is there some sort of intellectual thing I'm not picking up on that like this delivers that I don't understand? But there was a lot of that, like just like meeting people through that scene. And
right. But then you're saying that once you kind of figured out that there is a certain lyric-driven melodicism thing.
Yeah.
That was just that's what you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
So
think
what was the first kind of thing artist that was previously unknown to you? That you delved super
obviously
deep
like
into?
Mazzy Star,
Okay.
Huge influence.
Right.
Without a doubt, I could not deny that influence. But Mazzy Star, I think for a while, it was just like Mazzy Star, Broadcast, and like Belle and Sebastian. I feel like I listened to a lot of Belle and Sebastian. And then I had a friend who introduced me to like Bruce Springsteen and older music. What else do I
And it's
listen to?
interesting, because I feel like your earliest recordings, just as Angel Olsen, the kind of electronicness or the beat drivenness of like a Stereo Lab and a Broadcast and that sort of thing. It's not like even Mazzy Star. Like I don't listen to your music and think like obviously this is influenced by Mazzy Star at all.
If I did a cover of a Mazzy Star song, I would be like, I'm an asshole. Like I don't know. It would just be like too close for me. But I also, I think it's just more that I just know it's someone who's influenced me, so I couldn't do that.
Now, at this point, like with the first band or when you started playing guitar and trying to write a different kind of song, did you see yourself as doing this, as this being something that would be your life, it would become your life?
I didn't really know. I didn't want to do anything else, but I didn't really know if it's what I wanted to do. I think I was a little bit embarrassed because I didn't want to go to school like everybody else. I just wanted to play music. But eventually I started writing songs, and I think I might have played one show at the Lemp Art Center and realized that like I don't think I was like welcomed in the brotherhood of noise by playing these kinds of songs. But I ended up playing like some house shows and meeting some people from Chicago who were encouraging me to just get out of St. Louis for a couple shows and play there and see how it goes. So I went up there for New Year's and played a show there, and it was awesome. And I kept visiting, and then eventually moved there when I finished school. And then pretty much I had like a group of friends, like maybe 3 or 4 friends there, but I felt bad, like very needy towards them at first. I had just moved there and I didn't really know anyone, and then, you meet some people who you're not meant to be friends with, but they're just people that are there until you find your people.
Yeah, you're like, what are you doing tonight? And then you're like, secretly dreading it, but you're like, no,
because you're like,
what we got.
Because you're a moron, I would never hang out with you, but like...
You want to go see a show?
Yeah. But eventually I started playing these house shows in Chicago, and I'm still really close with a lot of people that would put on those shows, one of them being at this place called the Sack House, and another place they lived was called Ottoman Empire. And I started to get to know the music scene through these people putting on
And is that how
shows.
you kind of encountered Will Oldham, Bonnie Prince Billy?
Eventually. So we'll speed up. So many years down the line, the same group of friends that invited me for a show in Chicago, we're putting on a house show where it was like a film showing and a couple of other performances, but just like your average small kind of quieter house experience, not like a loud thing.
Right.
And I was there and I met a few different musicians, and one of them being Emmett Kelly, who wrote me about my songs, and I didn't hear from him for like 6 months, and then eventually Will wrote me to say that he was interested in me singing for this cover band called The Babblers, which was going to cover Kevin Coyne and Dagmar Krause's record Babel. And I thought I was just on for one tour, so I learned all these songs.
Wow, I don't even know what that is.
I know, it's crazy. Well, Kevin Coyne and Dagmar Krause are these German performers. There's this band called Slap Happy that I really love that Dagmar Krause was in, and then I think Kevin Coyne was in a different group. Anyway, they did stuff together. real weird, but Will was a huge fan of Kevin Quinn and his paintings and his work. So I think he just wanted to do something just to celebrate his music. And so I just thought, oh, I'm going to learn like a few Will Oldham songs and then learn these covers, and then I'll be back at the cafe and playing DIY shows in Chicago. So yeah, I don't know. It ended up lasting about 2.5 years.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, like off and on.
But that must have been just really good for you to, at that point, after having done your own thing for a minute already, to see, kind of get it on the road and just be like, okay, this is what it would be like.
Yeah, I didn't have an audience at the time, or maybe I did, but I didn't really tour. So it was like going from not touring as a 23-year-old lady with a band of all dudes who've been touring for life, who are sometimes kind of jaded, sometimes really excited. It was such an eye-opening experience about the music industry and how booking agents worked and press and all this stuff. And I just got to kind of like sit in the background and watch it. And I remember thinking sometimes, like, we're in Italy, why is everyone so upset, But, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and the tables have turned a lot since then. I've been in that position where I'm in charge of everyone's livelihood, and I have to wear many hats. These people are my friends, but they're also, like, my business partners. And you just feel a lot of different conflicting things when you're balancing all of that. And so maybe you're in Italy and maybe you're having the best meal of your life, but it's not just quite so simple anymore. Right. So yeah, at the time, I think it was kind of a prep for things to come, but I didn't know yet if that was going to, I had no idea what was about to happen in my life. And I came out with Strange Cacti on tape, this noise label, actually. Sort of atmospheric and noise-driven label called Pathetic Records. Reached out and wanted to put out my songs, and I said, I'll just do like a small tape of 6 or 7 songs. And so I released that while I was touring with Will, and it got some attention, but I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't know how anything in the music industry worked. I was just making songs.
Right.
And I had this totally weird idea of how everything worked. So after touring with Will for a while, I did like a short run. I played Kim's Video in New York and like 5 other shows in New York. And it was awesome. It was really fun. But I didn't feel the need yet to get out there and tour for my own music. And I had a good gig working for someone else who actually made money. So I wasn't going to give that up yet. I wasn't like, I think I was just trying to take it easy and not expect it to last forever, but to enjoy it while it was there. And when I came to recording Halfway Home, I decided that I needed to do some small tours. I had a booking agent in Europe reach out who wanted to book me a short stint, and I said, I don't really drive, so if you could make it all just trains. So I did this small stint, and then I did a small solo stint that spring or fall in the U.S., and it was like, as soon as I got home to Chicago, it was like 3 booking agents, several record labels, like managers, everybody was just like, oh, you're touring now. And there was this, what I realized in those short stints was that there was this audience waiting for me to perform. And I didn't have to work hard to like
beg and plead.
Yeah. And so I feel really, really lucky that I didn't have to try that hard, that it was just there. But it was kind of overwhelming because it was just like, oh, everybody at once came out of the woodwork to say, oh, we want to work with you suddenly because you're showing that you're on tour and working for your music. But my PR agent, Jessica Linker, was one of the first people that picked up the record before I had a manager or a label or anything. And it was kind of through trusting people that Will had worked with, like Billions, working with similar companies that I was already familiar with. Yeah. Jag had reached out to me 2 years before I released halfway home to say they were interested, and I just wasn't ready. So I wrote them to just be like, hey, I'm ready now. If you're still interested in my music. I have
They're like, sweet.
Yeah, so I sort of made these connections with people I already trusted. Pathetic, who put out my tape, moved to Asheville. I went there to record Burn Your Fire. It was just this small group of people that I was already familiar with.
Right.
And then my manager at the time was like best friends with John from Pathetic, so...
Right. And was the music... Because it's interesting, the Strange Cacti stuff, it reminds me... If it reminds me of anything, it reminds me of Will Oldham's music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the demo stuff.
That early Palace music stuff, Palace Brothers stuff, where it's just like spooky, like voice and guitar kind of vibe. And I wonder, was there a period of exploration for you with that kind of truly old-timey music, older than even what your parents had been listening to?
Oh, yeah.
Or was that just your execution of, did that just sort of come out by accident in your execution of kind of classic songwriting?
I mean, I listened to a lot of Fairport Convention, and I got into, like, it was like Fairport Convention to broadcast. Like,
right.
It's hard for me to remember exactly what I was listening to. I'm sure I listened to Leonard Cohen.
Right,
like,
Nick Drake and shit.
Yeah.
Did you have specific ideas, as you were getting more confident in your early songwriting about what kind of songs you wanted to be writing, what kind of sounds you wanted to be making? There
was a period of time that I was always really interested in the 30s. Like, I studied female surrealism in the 30s, and so female
surrealism in the 30s.
I know. Some like romanticized way of thinking about that time. I started listening to a lot of Mildred Bailey and a lot of like 30s style music, and I still feel like I am inspired by that time. But yeah, I think. As far as lyrics, like, I've always been inspired by a mix of different things, like power pop, stuff that sounds kind of 30s, stuff that's just like sort of your classic, like Neil Young style song,
Yeah.
But also really like the sound of demos. I think they're really intimate, and sometimes you don't need a lot. It's a lot more to hear something in its rawest form. And I don't know. I get attached to demos. Like, sometimes when I listen to a demo and I'm in the process of working on other things, I can't decide which demo I should continue. Like, if I go into a studio, I have 2 demos and one's in a different key. It takes me a while to figure out which one I'm gonna use.
Yeah.
Because I think the demos are perfect, and I need to let go of the nature of the demo and do something else with the record. But I think,
and I suppose that's where collaboration comes in handy. You get like a fresh pair of ears on it. Who would you say has been the most person whose opinions and feedback on your songs has had the most significant impact on how they turn out?
Well, I don't really. I'm sort of a wuss about criticism. But here's how I do it. So I send it to a group of friends, usually 5 or 6 friends that I trust, who understands, like, I don't really want them to say what they want me to change about it necessarily, if they like it or love it. But if I send it to them before they even say anything, and 24 hours later, if I'm feeling embarrassed, that usually means I still have to work on it. And so I'll end up writing them and be like, I'm so embarrassed, I need to finish this, but like...
And are they people who play me?
Some of them are writers.
Right.
Like my friend Matt is a poet and a writer, and he and I just like get together and talk about what we're reading, and he's someone I feel like I can trust with that sort of thing. But yeah, there's a select group of people where I will send stuff that I'm excited about too. But as far as really searching for critique, I feel like...
I guess I don't even mean critique. I just mean, like, the idea you wouldn't have thought of that is, like, a good enough idea that you incorporated into what you do next.
That's a good question. I feel like I collaborate most with my band in that way, especially, like, my drummer. I don't know, some of the song structures probably wouldn't, especially on the newer material, wouldn't be the way that they are without his input, because it changes the vibe of the song so much, you know.
Right.
And before I had this band, I would write stuff that was very lyric driven and zero space for guitar solos. And over time, just being with these people, it's sort of opened up my mind as far as writing something. When I write it now, I leave those spaces and think about those ideas and sometimes write those parts.
Right.
It's been a thing, like a sort of a challenge to take old material from Strange Cacti or other early records and trying to apply those rules to them. The song structures aren't there. They're not written for a band, so you have to kind of recreate them. And so, you know, I haven't really been wanting to do that with the band on some songs, so that's why I'm going to be doing a lot of solo shows this year, just to kind of revisit that material. But it's interesting to see how much just keeping in mind the band, keeping in mind how that will affect and change the songs, has sort of changed my writing.
Right. And I would imagine, too, even just now that, you know, as opposed to the Bonnie Prince Billy experience, like now that you're at Panorama Festival in a weird tent with a weird midday audience that you know, to like figure out the things that are not immediately apparent that have to be in the mix of the songs you're making, because you want to feel good in every environment in which you might play your song or something. Yeah. When did you kind of find your voice as a singer? I mean, did you sing as a little kid, or?
I feel like my voice has changed a lot over the years. I've definitely used a lot of different affectations. But I feel like the last few records have really opened up my mind on what I can do with my voice. But when I first started singing, I listened to a lot of English folk, and you can kind of hear that, I feel. I put out this record called Phases this year, and it's a collection of different periods of time in my work. And some of the songs I put on there, I would be embarrassed. Like, listening to them in this room, if we were listening to them, I just sort of grit my teeth because of the way that I was singing back then, how uncomfortable I was with myself, like sort of like reading a diary, but you know, it's not like this. It's not because the songs were personal and I feel embarrassed. It's more like what I was doing or trying at the time I thought was really interesting, and now I feel it's very transparent.
It's funny how I feel like if one, and maybe this is just me, but I feel like if you look at older photos of yourself, there's a sense of relief because you think that you've been too hard on yourself in the moment about how you looked, you know, that in retrospect, you're like, oh, okay, yeah,
yeah,
cool.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But if you, like, read your words or look back at something you worked on that's, like, a thing you care about, you can't help but be embarrassed because you can see how much you've improved from then or something like that. And
I feel like some of the writing, like, some of the stuff I was talking about, I was like, I was 23 years old. What could I have been going through that was really, like, inspiring me to write this song?
There's something pure in that, though, obviously.
But here's the thing, like, people, you revisit your old work, and it's almost like you're listening to a stranger because you've changed so much sometimes since that period. So, you know, I don't remember what the songs were about necessarily, but I remember, like, trying that thing with my voice that I find to be annoying now, you know. But I found it interesting because if I hadn't gone through that period of time, I wouldn't have found what I like and what I hate. And, you know, I'm sure in 5 years I'll look back at a record that I did, you know, My Woman or a previous record, and be like, this sucks. Maybe.
It's one of the things you gotta admire about good old Robert Zimmerman. And the fact that he made Nashville Skyline just decided to sound like Kermit the Frog for an album, and just like, let's just, I'm already famous, let me just sing in a weird falsetto.
Yeah, I mean, you want to try new things.
You gotta.
I feel like, Yeah, I don't know when I exactly found.
But you're a technically gifted singer. I mean, you have a good tone and good pitch and that kind of thing. You know, that just
I'm pretty good.
Must have been so yeah.
I decided to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you weren't like singing in the chorus or something like as a little kid.
I mean, I was, but I always just thought the old ladies that came up to me at church or wherever were just being nice. You know? And then eventually, playing these house shows, it was really inspiring because it was the first time I got that kind of attention, and people would come up after the show and, like, you know, ask me if I had any CDs, and I'd be like, I don't know, I don't have any CDs, you know. So I started making mix CDs for people and giving them away, and
it sounds like sort of, you know, and obviously you're still, you know, only a few albums into your career. It's not like you're an old pro or anything, but it sounds like you have a pretty kind of chill approach to things where you're just like, you're not putting a ton of pressure on yourself, or you're just, which is awesome because artists can freak themselves the fuck out or whatever. But I wonder if, you know, in more recent years, did you sort of zoom out and say, like, I do really, really care about this. I do really, really want to do this.
I think for this record, it was sort of like that because for Burn Your Fire, it was my first big record where I was touring all over the world and I was doing well, and I was starting to see why sometimes you have a nice dinner in Italy and it's not a nice dinner, you know, that sort of thing. Because you're doing, like, so much press because you want to be important, because you want the record to do well, because you want to support your friends who are playing with you, and then you see a photo of yourself and you're like, why did they think that was a good photo? Like, I have 3 chins. You know, like, and you're like reading reviews and you're like, that's not what I said. And they left out this other part that I was talking for hours about this book that I love, and they totally left that out, you know. And you start overthinking it, and then I kind of pulled away from that, and I was like, fuck this, I'm not reading reviews, and I don't want to look at pictures. I'm going to stay off the internet unless it has to do with Instagram and sometimes Twitter, you know, like, and even now I'm like, that sometimes is a little too much because people get addicted to looking at their phones. So, but when I first was doing well, I would, like, check in and read all the things and, you know, try to figure out what people thought of what I was doing, because it was just so weird. I just didn't find it to be very helpful for me to stay on course and to think about my writing.
But I mean, are you at a place now where you are sort of strategizing for, you know, a longer, farther down the road than you might have? To
answer your question, coming back and doing this record, I decided I wanted to do a lot of things very differently than I had, and I wanted to be the editor. Like, you know, I wanted to be the editor of everything, because then I felt like if something went wrong, at least I was the one who messed it up, you know? Right. But yeah, I just wanted to have that kind of approach to everything, making the record, mixing the record, doing all of the image stuff, all the press, everything, like, in relation to it. I wanted to kind of go out of the way to let people know that I was putting my stamp on everything, you know, making videos and all of that. And to have fun with it, the aesthetic. Like, one of my close friends is a tailor, and though I love the scrappy old version of the band, and I love the grungy, scrappy vibe, this record was a different kind of message, and if I was going to have that message, I just wanted to have a little bit more aesthetic fun without losing the integrity of what I put into the music. So I got, like, the band these baby blue suits with bolo ties. Well, the bolo ties were their idea, but my friend who was a tailor was like, I'll make these dresses for you. And so we started working on these dresses, and I got really into the aesthetic, the whole piece of performing something.
Right.
And
Which is so important.
I didn't want to get
right.
lost in it. You know,
Right.
I find that can be annoying sometimes. Artists get bigger and they get lost in the dancers or the light show or
Right.
like all these things that kind of, they can help the music, especially if it starts to suck.
Right.
But I don't want to get lost in it. I just wanted to have something that looked really classic,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, it looked great, the shows that I saw. I mean, plus the silver wig is a nice touch at the end of the set. But I also feel like, you know, again, considering that we've hung out a little bit before this interview, you're a funny person. You've got a good sense of humor.
You think I'm funny?
Yeah. You are a funny person. And I feel like, you know, I mean, obviously a song like Shut Up, Kiss Me is funny.
Yeah.
But this, you know, My Woman does seem like there's more of like that aspect of your personality coming through. And then watching, the first time I ever saw you play a headlining show was just at that show in New York at fucking in East Williamsburg.
Recently.
Yeah, Brooklyn Steel,
Brooklyn
right.
Steel.
That was the first headlining show I'd seen you play ever.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, she's fucking hilarious. Like,
That
even
was
just
fun.
when you're just like not saying much, it's funny. So I can see why you would want to like to have a kind of subtle, like some humor in the larger presentation of it.
I wanted to add a sense of humor back to my work because I felt like people were starting to, I didn't mind so much the genres that people were putting me into. I just didn't want to have the reputation that people couldn't have a good time, that only sad breakup people could come to my show. You know?
Yeah.
I was like, no, it's bigger than that, you guys. Like, you don't have to be going through a breakup. I promise, it'll be fun. But, you know, like, I also, obviously I write songs that are like that, and I have accepted that about my career, but I also, I just wanted to have fun. And it was so hard for me to figure out what to wear on stage. Eventually, like, looking at all these photos, I was like, I have, like, such a weirdly shaped body. I'm petite, but I'm a woman, you know? I'm not like the rest of those skinny bitches out there playing rock and roll with, like, no bra on. Like, I wish, but, I mean, maybe I could, but that would be a different story and a different My Woman, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But I had this woman, Bailey Rayner, design these clothes for me, and it really made me feel comfortable.
Yeah, power clothes.
Yeah, made me feel sexy and good about my body for not being like the typical like tiny model woman who's in a successful band. Like I was like, I'm looking at all these girls and I'm like, they're doing great, you know, they're eating nothing. But I love food and I'm gonna dance around on this stage, so like give me a dress that I can wear to do both those things.
Yeah. Or the one piece.
Yeah. Oh my God. So that was
suit.
like, I came out with a video with a wig on and people got the wrong idea, I feel like. And they were like, are you changing? Are you adding a persona to your set? Like, what is it going to be like? And I felt kind of turned off by that because I just thought people missed the point. And then by the end of this last tour, I decided that I really liked the wig. I don't know if it's appropriate for all the songs that I sing, and so we decided to do this spacesuit and then add the wig as sort of like a cherry on top at the end of this really long tour. So it was a nice thing to finally accept the personas that we kind of put off for a while. So
yeah. And then doing that 5 years Bowie cover.
Oh man, did we do it
cherry
that
on
night?
the cherry on top? Yeah.
Oh man. So hard.
So good, though.
It was so hard because sometimes you're so tired by the end of the set, and then all of a sudden you got to do 5 years.
Oh my God!
You know?
Smiling and waving and looking so far.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
has Bowie been a long time kind of favorite of yours?
I feel like the Bowie pick was a few reasons. I wanted to do a Bowie cover, but I didn't know which one I wanted to do, and that song had always been really like one of my favorites. And when we recorded this record, he had just passed away, and there was a roller skate night at the Glendale roller rink while we were in town, so we all got tickets and went. And I thought, around then I thought of the videos, and I was thinking of sort of doing like a glam rock video that was taking place in a roller rink So I was thinking of that in relation to Bowie, and then with the wig, just the idea of persona and also being yourself while having the persona, and sort of celebrating that you can do both as a human, as a performer.
Yeah.
I just really, I felt like he did that really well. And so when we made the spacesuit, I was like, well, we got to do a Bowie song. If I'm going to wear a spacesuit, you know, we got to do a Bowie song. But we would alternate between that and I Found a Reason, and sometimes we'd do both. But I also find that having a cover song, especially when you've been touring for a long time, can kind of bring everybody together. And I wanted the band to sing more. I don't know. It makes it a little bit more relaxed when it's not just my song that we're singing. So.
And now you've mentioned that, you know, you've got Coachella coming up, obviously, and you're going to do some solo performances. But, I mean, 2018 in the larger sense, are you going to give yourself some time off later in the year? What kind of stuff are you looking forward to doing just between now and when you feel enough of the urge to go back into the studio again to start doing that?
Yeah, it's so hard for me to imagine what the studio even looks like, the next one that I'm going to go into.
Yeah.
I've never been a person who works with the same producer twice, but I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious what it would be like. I think we all kind of need a break.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to see what playing the solo material is like, and what I sort of, through revisiting that, what is on my mind, and how will I approach the next thing that I'm doing. Because I have been writing. I've been writing sort of as an exercise. I've been writing about a fake band. And I have this idea to write songs for the fake band and everything. But
yeah.
I don't know what to do with it. It could just be an exercise. And then I just want to get into the practice of writing in general, not necessarily music. So there could be something later in life where I do something with that. But at the moment, I'm just trying to chill because there's just a lot of reflection that needs to be done about what just happened. And I mean, I had like 3 weeks off, and I was telling Christian, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, already I'm feeling idle. I need to do something, you know.
Yeah, but that's, you have to give I think artists especially have to let yourself get bored sometimes. You can't just give in to the urge to be like, I should start on the next thing, because it's the you know, the moments when you let yourself live again that, like, you know, space is cleared for the ideas.
I mean, I've been learning how to write while on tour, and to continue to do that, and to take what I can from those experiences. But I don't want to write about being on tour, you know?
Yeah.
I'd like to write about other things. So,
but it must be exciting just to know that you know, that it's now reached a level where it's exciting, because people are going to be stoked whatever the next thing is. They're there.
It's weird. I don't ever really think about it like I did all this stuff. It's like a package in space. Like, it's all, I did it. You know, I always kind of feel like there's something I have to, like, there's more work to be done, and I could do it differently and better the next time, you know.
What are some contemporary, recent artists, peers of yours, who you find genuinely inspiring?
Just in general?
Yeah, where you're just like, that person's kicking ass, and it makes me have faith that you can do good work in the world, and
I mean,
and they won't beat you down.
I mean, musicians or just anyone?
Musicians, creative people.
You know, a lot of people that I feel inspired by are my friends, like Kevin Morby. I don't know. I feel like it's also just really good to be able to have these conversations with people who are just as isolated and celebrated at once with you, because you can kind of talk about how weird it is sometimes without feeling like you're being an asshole or complaining, or I don't know. When I first started doing well and getting into this world, I was like feeling super weird and alone about some stuff. And so I found myself reaching out to like David Bazan or like Phil from Mount Erie, actually, and just people who were older than me and had been doing it longer, and maybe not at the same in the same world as me, but like who had been doing it for years, to sort of feel like, what is it like? What is it like being a dad and coming home, and like, how do you have kids one day, and like, when you go home, like, do you just jump into dad mode? Like, and I still have those questions for people, you know?
I think everybody always says that they feel very weird when they get home from tour.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to be a thing.
Somebody said they had like a 24-hour rule where they got like a place before, like at the end of tour. Not home. And so I started to come up with my own rule. It was like 24 hours, maybe 48 hours of just me time, because I would just, I'd get home and, someone would have planned a date for me at like a baseball game, and I'm just like, just got back from Europe, do not care about baseball. Like, you're not in the mode to like be appreciative of that.
Yeah.
I think you just need a minute.
But there must be some fun non-work stuff that you're going to try and do. Are you going to travel at all? Do you have any like sweet vacation plans? Or?
Well, I'm coming here a lot to see friends, and so that'll be fun.
You still don't drive though?
I drive.
Oh, you drive?
Oh, yeah,
okay.
I do.
Drive now. I was going to ask.
I moved from Chicago to Asheville about 4 years ago, and started driving again when I moved there.
So you'll be back and forth a bit between here and Asheville?
I think so. I'd like to like do collaborations with friends out here, film, or, just hang out with people and make stuff that I care about. One of my close friends here, I was mentioning her earlier, Juliana Barwick, has been like a bigger sister to me. About like this last year was just kind of, there were some things that were a little hellish happening, and she was really supportive and just a good person to be around,
I think that's all I've got for you, Angel.
Cool. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah.
Well, maybe just go ahead and bookmark angelolsen.com. This way it's easy to stay in the loop about her plans for later this year and beyond. And up next on LSQ, it's that Avril Lavigne interview clip I've been telling you about. Basically, in early 2003, Rolling Stone sent me to Tokyo to report a cover story on Avril, several months after her debut album had come out and was already an international success. It was fascinating to spend a couple of days with Avril just watching, the people of Tokyo respond to her. She was a huge star there at the time. And talking to Avril about, her early efforts as a songwriter, about what she found to be the struggles in collaborating with producers who she thought didn't take her opinions seriously enough. It's interesting, as soon as I listened to this clip again, I remembered this moment in the interview, the moment, as you'll hear, when Avril snaps her fingers to indicate how easy she finds it to write a song. And something about it seemed defensive to me at the time. So a few days later, when I went to Los Angeles to interview some of the producers Avril had collaborated with on songs for that album, I asked them about, her role in the songwriting process, and their stories differed from the way Avril described it. So it was always an unanswered question for me regarding that album and from that cover story. In years since, I've developed a different attitude about it, because who really cares how much of the songwriting Avril did? She was obviously already off to a great start as an artist, especially in the pop realm, where she broke from a cookie-cutter mold that, had been established not that long before by people like Britney Spears, God bless her, but it was great to have someone who was irreverent in the way Avril was, and I don't think I adequately appreciated it at the time. So with that in mind, let's listen to this Avril excerpt, starting where I'm basically asking her about some time she spent working with various collaborators before the album was finished.
Everyone kind of had the idea that I was going to be like this little pop chick, like really nice ballady songs and very reserved. And I was like, A lot of people I got sent to, they wouldn't put like electric guitars and they wouldn't rock out. When I'd be like, come on, let's make this edgy, or they like, they wouldn't get it. And they would like listen to the label over me. And that was so hard for the longest time. Like, that was like the most depressing thing I ever went through in my life.
Because how long a period of time did this stretch out over?
A year, a bit over a year.
Right. So when you first went into working with Peter, to by the time you were like really like recording the songs that ended up on the record, like what was the main thing that changed for you as a songwriter? Like, what did you have to learn about writing songs from when you first started? Because I'm sure, as you say, your songwriting must have gotten a lot better.
I learned the format. I mean, pop format, I guess. I learned, that I don't like little artificial drum beats. I just learned stuff about the sounds and just being in that environment 24/7 for that long. I just started learning that, I have to stand there in front of that person and speak up and tell them what I want, or they're going to do exactly what they want when they're sitting there at that board. In order for me to do that, I'll do that, but not everyone's going to listen to me. I'll do that until someone listens to me.
Yeah.
And I did that until people listened to me. And that's what it took. The main thing is you got to work with the artist. A lot of people wouldn't listen to me, but when people finally did, their shit ended up on the record.
So, how many songs did you record? I mean, was it more songs that made it onto the record? Mm-hmm. Did you record more? Was it?
I have other stuff. A couple other. I have other stuff, but
is that stuff ever gonna come out somewhere?
No.
Because were you not happy with it?
Wasn't as happy with it. It just wasn't. I wasn't feeling it.
Right.
It was good stuff. I just not what I wanted to.
Right.
I didn't really feel like it was me coming out. It was more of the other writer.
Right.
Which makes sense because I just kind of sat there in the beginning, like, when they were taking lead towards the end, I was the one who took lead.
So how does it, like, I mean, I'm sure you haven't had much time to do any writing since this whole thing has happened, but like, how does it basically work for you? Like, do the words come to you first?
Guitar, and then I throw a melody on top, and then I put lyrics to it. It's basically how it works.
Which part is the hardest, do you think?
I don't find any of it hard. It's like that for me. I can write, somebody can go write a song. That's what they do. Go, okay, you have 4 days in the studio. Go, I'll write like 4 songs. I can write a song a day. Like, I can do it really quickly. But if I'm writing a lot all the time, then I might run out of what to say.
Right.
What to say. But
how long did it take to write Complicated?
1 day. 2-3 hours. Maybe not even, maybe 2 hours.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I sang it 3 times in the booth, that's it. 3 times all the way through.
All right, that brings us to the end of episode 6 of LSQ. Major thanks to Angel Olsen for taking the time to sit with me and for being an awesome lady. And thanks to Christian Stavros for helping to set that up. Plus, of course, thanks to Avril Lavigne for the time she spent with me all those years ago. And thanks to you for listening to the LSQ podcast. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and whenever you've got feedback, you can reach me on Twitter at JennyLSQ. I am making some stickers and pins that I'll be sending out to those of you who are interested in either wearing them yourself or being kind of like a little street team. You can reach me on email, as they say. lsqpod@gmail.com is how to do that. And the next episode, which comes out in a few weeks, will feature an interview with Death Cab for Cutie's Ben Gibbard, which is going to be an awesome one. Plus, a little farther down the line, you'll hear episodes with Jack Antonoff, Kristen Control, Danielle from Haim, and others. So I hope you all make it a habit of checking out LSQ every few weeks. And yeah, thanks again for listening. That's about it for now.